Well, hey folks, it's the final day of King Krampus, and welcome back to Total Party Skills. And just want to start off by paraphrasing Razor Fist for a moment to say, I'm right, I'm right, I'm right, I'm right, I'm right. Two predictions I've been making on this channel seem to be bearing some fruit. When OneD&D first came out, my initial reaction video I put out for that said that a lot of it seemed to strike me as a vessel to, basically charge players money finally so that they can, have different colors for their little digital miniature and charge DMs money so they can have access to, assets to put in their little miniatures, virtual tabletop dungeon, and all that other kind of stuff. And lo and behold, as of course everyone knows now, some leaks from an investor meeting seem to indicate a general desire amongst the powers that be at the top tier of the role-playing game industry to try to milk some more money out of everyone by basically turning the whole thing into a video game. And I feel like this is a good old case of killing the golden goose. The role-playing game hobby is a distinct hobby, and to a degree, players shouldn't be locked out behind a paywall entirely, unless you're entering in a specific arrangement with a real specific dungeon master who has real specific skills that warrant, getting paid for your services and all that kind of stuff. And if players want to buy little trinkets or T-shirts or books about their particular preferred character class or character species or whatever, that's all fine. For a company that likes to make a big show of inclusion, this is the exact sort of thing that shuts a lot of poor, impoverished peoples out of the hobby, now doesn't it? And basically, it's just going to turn it into Raid Shadow Legends or Sims Free Play or any number of various online games that are just basically trying to rip you off because they're trying to run it like a video game arcade where they want you to keep pumping quarters into the machine. They want you to just buy it once. And, at that point, it stops being the hobby it was. And unfortunately, because of the way, companies kind of work in lockstep with each other, there's, I would say just predictably, not because of having heard anything, but there's a chance that some of the other, the top tier role-playing game companies might try to follow D&D's example if they don't immediately have it blow up in their face. Another thing I heard, the first time I've heard someone else, utter the words, but it was on a Archcast, which I finally had some time to sit down and listen to so I can actually hear what the hell's going on with all this monetization stuff. The last few videos I did on it, I was just kind of generally commenting because I hadn't really had a time to look into the nitty-gritty of it. But anyway, I heard someone bring up that apparently they're also considering to getting rid of the Open Games license. So potentially, goodbye OSR, which is something else that I've occasionally voiced in videos going all the way back to the beginning of this channel as being something that, while yes, it seems like a huge hill to climb and it might not even work, they might get slapped down in lawsuits and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, though, from a business point of view, at some point, when Wizards of the Coast is feeling a crunch, and especially since they're trying to rebrand everything as OneD&D, well, if they want to be like the one source for D&D, then having a bunch of off-brand D&D stuff out there kind of nibbles away at their market. And also, even if they don't want to acknowledge the truth of what they've done, they've chased an awful lot of their older, more fiscally solvent players away from the purchasing their current products into instead spending their money on OSR products and putting money into the dirty, dirty hands of amateurs. So, there's no guarantee that's going to happen. There's no guarantee the monetization thing's going to happen. It's just something they're talking about at investors meeting, but they might realize just from hearing the backlash to it that this is not something they're going to be able to get away with doing. These aren't set in stone by any stretch, but I feel vindicated for having been making these points that these things are possible, and now here we are. So that's why you should put up with my weird ramblings and my sometimes off-putting conclusions, because sometimes those off-putting conclusions, came about for a reason, shall we say. So, I don't know. No one's perfect. I obviously get things wrong sometimes. But in terms of piggybacking off these predictions, should they come true, I mean, this could harm the entire hobby. If the OSR goes away, and those things all get yanked off Drive-Thru RPG. That could basically destroy Drive-Thru RPG as a publishing platform for people to self-publish their works. Um, I don't. Is it going to even go so far as that they'll pull the PDFs for all the old AD&D stuff and previous editions? I mean, I guess, at the risk of sounding like a shill for Drive-Thru RPG, but if there's any like old books that you want physical copies of, I guess you better fucking order them fast before something changes as they get closer and closer to the release point of OneD&D. But like a lot of these OSR players, I mean, yeah, they'll still have their own copies of their stuff to run, but like, part of the hobby is being a bit of a collector and wanting to, check out the new stuff, and, players want to check out the new stuff. So, there's still going to be a desire to get new things from time to time. And so what are they going to do? Be forced to have to jump over to entirely unrelated non-D20 game systems that, like a lot of these older players, I've already made opinions on, that they don't want to play World of Darkness, or they don't want to play Cyberpunk, or they don't want to play Palladium. They liked playing old school D&D. And yeah, they're just going to be, forever relying on increasingly old, battered, tattered copies of books, because nothing new is going to be coming out that they're going to be willing to want to spend money on, especially if D&D implodes itself like this. God, their movie's been delayed. They're trying to sell the studio that was making the new D&D movie with Chris Pine, which is weird. I mean, even if it's, looks better, and it might actually be a good movie. Who the hell knows? Stranger things have happened. But, is really going to be able to overcome the reputation D&D already has in the media for all of its prior movies and, its old 80s cartoon, which I know some people have nostalgia glasses for, but that old 80s cartoon, didn't last for a reason. I don't know. I don't want to be a doom and gloom sayer right here, right before the holidays, but this should make everyone in the hobby, take a step back and ask themselves, how they want to deal with this and what's coming. What's your strategy? What's your plan of action? Can they be stopped, or are the idiot masses out there going to end up vindicating these people for trying to make these sorts of changes? Because they'll be able to bring in so many casual players who, might not otherwise have been drawn to playing a game like this, but as a weird interactive video game with no dungeon master, where you're basically just hanging out with your avatars like it's Facebook meta, maybe that'll be attractive to a bunch of people. People like spending money so they can get nice shiny pauldrons for their elf paladin. This could be a monstrous success for them, and that's possibly the worst outcome of all. So, I don't know, there is no players union, there is no DMs union, we're all fractured. All these years of political grandstanding for the last 5 to 10 years in the community, makes it hard to really be able to bring anybody around one central thing to unite everyone, because as soon as one half of the group has said they're for it, the other half of the group has to be against it. But Jesus Christ, we need to have a boycott of OneD&D and everything Wizards of the Coast does from this point forward. But we're dealing with addicts here, people who are addicted to collecting D&D stuff. So I feel we may portray ourselves in our darkest hour. And so I guess on that note, have a Merry Krampus. Hit like and subscribe, and as always, stay waspinated.